President Barack Obama welcomes nearly 50 African leaders to Washington for the first ever U.S. Africa Leaders Summit. The event is designed to advance America's focus on trade and investment in Africa and highlight the administration's commitment to Africa's security and democratic development. For more insight on the upcoming summit, joining us today from the U.S. State Department is Linda Thomas-Greenfield, Assistant Secretary, Bureau of African Affairs. Ambassador, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here with you.
We're glad to have you. The presidents of Sierra Leone and Guinea have canceled their attendance to the summit next week. How will the Ebola crisis affect the agenda next week?
Well, let me just start by expressing our support for the governments who are affected by this, Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. I've spoken to all three leaders over the past 2 days, and I was informed by President Sirleaf and President Koroma that they would not be attending. It was a difficult decision for them to make. We were clearly disappointed that they're not going to be at the summit, but certainly very understanding of the reasons for them not attending. They have to be in their countries to deal with this crisis and to give support to their people. And we're working with them closely to help them address the crisis.
So can you expand a little more on how the United States is helping to contain this outbreak?
As you know, this crisis didn't just start this week. It has been a crisis that's been ongoing since about March. CDC has been proactively supporting the efforts of the government, working closely with the World Health Organization, providing expertise, providing technical assistance, and also providing advice to the governments who have been affected.
Now, civil society groups believe they should have a bigger role in the summit and are concerned that the Obama administration rhetoric about human rights and good governance is not matched by the summit's agenda. How do you respond?
Well, I'm really happy that civil society is being so proactive on the summit, and civil society has been integrated throughout the summit. As you know, we will be hosting a civil society event in which Secretary Kerry will be chairing and speaking. I was at a civil society event earlier this morning planning for the AGOA Forum, and there are civil society events that will be taking place across Washington during the summit. The deliberations of these meetings will play into our deliberations at the summit because we think civil society play an important role. We want them to be part of our dialogue with Africa, and we will encourage that dialogue.
Now, the theme of the summit is investing in the next generation. Some statistics show that 60% of the population in Africa is comprised by the youth. In what ways the administration suggests African leaders to unlock opportunities for the next generation?
Well, this is what the summit is all about. As you know, we just completed a 3-day summit for young African leaders in the Mandela Washington Fellowship Program. These young leaders, 500 of them from across the continent of Africa, have been in the United States for the past 6 weeks, where they were at universities being trained in leadership and mentoring in the areas of entrepreneurship, community development, and public service. And they are really impressive. They are 500 out of 50,000 who actually applied, and we're looking forward to having another 500 come to Washington next year and doubling that number in 2016. Investing in Africa's next generation is about these young people and about preparing them to take on roles in various endeavors in the future. Having met many of these young leaders, I am very confident about Africa's future and about their abilities. We will be turning that future over to great hands.
Now, more than three months ago, schoolgirls in Chibok have been kidnapped by Boko Haram. How the U.S. has sent some assistance, but we still see that Boko Haram is still affecting Nigeria. We've seen the attacks this week in Cameroon. How will the summit address this major security concern?
Well, one of the areas that we will be focusing on during the summit is peace and security, and how we can help African countries better build the capacity to address security issues that are occurring across the continent. And we will be working with those governments and talking to those governments, because this is something that they want to talk about. They asked that this be on the agenda because we have a number of security issues that we're facing around the continent. We will also have a separate meeting on Boko Haram with the countries that have been affected by Boko Haram. This is one of the side meetings that we will be hosting, so that we can continue our engagement with Nigeria and its neighbors on how to address the Boko Haram threat. What is happening in Nigeria has impacted not just Nigeria, but certainly all of Nigeria's neighbors, and it's impacted all of us. And we want to be there to support the efforts to address this issue, but we also know that it's very difficult, and we're working to find ways to be more effective.
And before we wrap up, let me ask you quickly, what are the U.S. future plans for investment in Africa, African trade and economies, especially given China's presence, which continues to grow?
Well, we have been engaged with Africa for decades. This is not a new engagement that we have in Africa. This is about reaffirming what has been a strong partnership that we've had with the African continent for generations. And so this commitment will continue. We want Africans to know that our commitment is strong, our commitment is sincere, and as we move forward in helping Africa start to prepare for the next generation, to govern for the next generation, we want Africans to know that the United States government will be there with them. We will be with them in terms of supporting good governance, and we will be there with them in terms of supporting better and greater investment in Africa, so that we can create the kind of prosperity that all Africans deserve.
Ambassador Thomas-Greenfield, thank you so much for joining us.
Good. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to have been here.
Linda Thomas-Greenfield is Assistant Secretary, Bureau of African Affairs.